people is under threat by the plans that Peter Dutton has.
Thanks very much, Katie. I wanted to pay tribute to Katie and her work and the work of the Expenditure Review Committee that Katie helps lead. We have found, as Katie said, almost $15 billion in savings in this update and $92 billion in savings since we were elected. And remember, that compares with precisely no savings in the Coalition's last budget. So savings and spending restraint have been hallmarks of our responsible economic management. 2 surpluses in the first 2 years and smaller deficits than we inherited from our predecessors are a demonstration of those savings and that spending restraint, and that's why it's a hallmark of our responsible economic management. Without that combination of savings and tax reform and spending restraint, we wouldn't have got anywhere near the very positive turnaround that you'll see in the mid-year budget update tomorrow. In a cumulative sense, the budget is in much better nick than what we inherited from our predecessors. And I remind you just of the first 3 years that we've been in office. In our first year, we turned a $78 billion deficit into a $22 billion surplus. In our second year, we turned a $56 billion deficit into a $16 billion surplus. And in our third year, we've taken a $47 billion deficit from the Coalition and turned that into a much smaller $28 billion deficit in the budget this year, and we'll update that number tomorrow. And as Caitley rightly identified a moment ago, there's the near-term pressure that we've taken off the budget, but we've also worked at the same time on some of the bigger structural issues. And we've talked many times, Katie and I and all of you here, about the 5 big structural pressures on the budget. Katie mentioned 2 of them, NDIS and aged care. But we've also made very, very substantial progress getting the debt down, and that means we're paying much less interest on that debt. Tens of billions of dollars of interest repayments saved because of our responsible economic management. Now, this is not an end in itself. It's how we make room for the nation's priorities, and it's also how we accommodate the very substantial pressures on the budget as well. And what we've been able to do is to make room for our priorities and also for the pressures on the budget, some of them unavoidable. Tomorrow, for example, a big feature of the mid-year budget update will be the estimates variations. And just to run through some of them. Age pension indexation, $3.6 billion write-up. The DSP, $3.6 billion. More kids in early childhood education, $3.1 billion. Schools, $2.6 billion. Medicare and the PBS, $2.3 billion. Indexation of income support payments, $2.1 billion. An extra $1.8 billion for disaster relief that I was talking to people in tropical far north Queensland about late last week, as well as a multi-billion-dollar estimates variation which goes to extra demand for aged care services. So these are pressures, they're also priorities, and we've made room for them, and you'll see that in tomorrow's mid-year budget update. Now, when the Coalition says that this is overspending, what they really mean is they're coming after Medicare and medicines and pensions. If Angus Taylor and Peter Dutton think that extra spending for Medicare and medicines and pensions indexation is wasteful spending, then they need to come clean this week to the Australian people and say how much will they cut from Medicare and medicines and pensions and some of these other important areas like disaster relief or supporting veterans with the support that they need and deserve. So every single time that Angus Taylor says that this is wasteful spending, he needs to be asked how much will he cut from Medicare and medicines and pensions indexation, because that's what he really means when he says that this is wasteful spending. Medicare and medicines and pensions are not safe under the Coalition. We know that they are a risk to household budgets because we know their record. We know that Peter Dutton came after Medicare last time. We know that they come after wages every time. And we know that they will push up electricity bills with this economic insanity, which is Peter Dutton's nuclear fantasy. So despite all the pressures on the budget, we've delivered 2 surpluses, smaller deficits than we inherited, and less debt as a consequence. And more broadly, if you look at the progress that the country has made in the last 2.5 years, inflation down, wages up, 1 million jobs created, unemployment with a 3 in front of it, the gender pay gap the narrowest it's ever been with more work to do, a tax cut for every taxpayer, energy bill relief for every household, and still those 2 surpluses, still that ongoing responsible economic management, which is the defining feature of our government and will be the defining feature of the statement tomorrow. I wanted to flag a couple of other things before Katie takes all of your questions. The first one is that this MYEFO tomorrow is part of a big week in the economy. We're sprinting to the finish all the way to Christmas. I wanted to flag with you that later this afternoon we'll be releasing the tax expenditures statement. You know that we've put a lot of effort into renovating that, making it more useful to you, making its insights more valuable, and so I wanted to flag that we'll be releasing that hopefully in the next couple of hours if we can. There'll also be the population statement that we're obligated to release in the summer. We're looking to release that at some point this week as well, probably closer towards the end of the week than the start of the week, given everything else that we have on. Now, when it comes to the tax expenditure statement, you know that that's a requirement under the Charter of Budget Honesty. I say again, it's an important piece of analysis. It's not a statement of policy intent. You already know that we've got a substantial agenda when it comes to tax reform, and Andrew Lee will also have a bit more to say later today about our country-by-country reporting part of our multinational tax reforms as well. But I wanted to flag that with you. It will provide lots of detail on the tax system and what it means for the budget, and we'll put that out in the next couple of hours. The